Greetings from the United State of Texas and from inside my own brain. I am Jared Johnson, the Jared J. If you missed my episode talking about some of the top quarterbacks of this NFL draft, you can go back and watch that now. Today we're going to stay on the topic of the upcoming NFL draft, which is April 24th through the 26th. Today we're going to be talking about the running back position. Now, while this draft class has been said to not be the strongest for quarterbacks and receivers, even though there are some good players in those categories, this is being talked about as one of the best draft classes for running backs of recent memory. Time will tell whether or not we have a Christian McCaffrey in this class, or a Saquon Barkley, or a Derrick Henry, or a Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Time will tell, but we're going to find out pretty soon where some of these guys go. So I'm going to talk today about three guys. You could argue who the top three in this class are. These are the three that I kind of see as being the top three prospects. We're going to jump right in with someone I don't really think there's going to be too much disagreement on as being the number one running back in this class. From Boise State University, 5'9", 215-pound Ashton Jeanty. If you follow football at all, I do not have to tell you about who this guy is. If you don't know him, you must not pay any attention to college football. In 2023, as a sophomore, Jeanty had 1,347 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns, averaged 6.1 yards per carry. He also caught 43 passes for 569 yards and 5 touchdowns. That alone would have made him one of the best running backs of the 2024 draft class. He wasn't eligible for the draft yet, but my point is his productivity as a sophomore would have gotten him drafted probably ahead of a lot of the guys that were drafted last year. Then this past season, 374 carries, 2,601 yards, 7 yards per carry, 29 rushing touchdowns with a long run of 77. He caught 23 passes, 138 yards, and 1 touchdown. So the receiving numbers were down a little bit, but who cares when you've got 2,601 rushing yards? By all consensus, this guy's the number one running back in the class. He finished second in the Heisman voting. The speed's there. Some people say he don't have the greatest breakaway speed. Look, I get it. He's not quite Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's certainly not slow. He's got good speed. He's got good quickness. He's very good at breaking tackles and maintaining balance. The biggest negative I've heard, and really the only one, is, yeah, but he played at Boise State. The level of competition wasn't there. And I understand that, and it is a factor to be taken into consideration. But when you put up that type of productivity and you're playing Division I college football, you've got to be pretty darn good. You just do. Nobody puts up these type of numbers if they aren't a really good football player. Also, yes, the competition in the NFL is going to be much greater. Talmadge and I did a video not long ago where we talked about Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter, so we went a little bit deeper. If you haven't seen that episode, you can go back and watch that. The competition is going to be tougher in the NFL, but guess what? He's also going to be running behind an NFL offensive line. He's also going to have other weapons on his team to take pressure off of him, something he did not have at Boise State. Can any one of you, without going to the internet right now, name any of Boise State's receivers? Can you tell me the quarterback's name? Can you tell me anybody on their offensive line? I can't. I'd have to go look, because all I know, their offense was basically Ashton Jeanty. No matter where he gets drafted, there are going to be NFL caliber talent around him, because guess what? If they weren't NFL caliber, they wouldn't be in the NFL. So he's going to have better weapons around him. Defenses won't be able to just completely load up on him. I'm curious to see where he goes. A lot of the mock drafts I've seen have him being taken at number 12 by the Dallas Cowboys, which does make sense because they definitely need an upgrade at running back. I personally think he could drop further because there's this idea that, oh, you can't take a running back that high. I don't really ascribe to that. I understand it, but if your team needs a running back and a guy's this good, why can't you take a running back that high? You certainly can. The Falcons took Bijan Robinson, number 8 overall, 2 years ago. it was worth it. Jahmyr Gibbs that same year went in the top 20 to Detroit. They already had David Montgomery, but they recognized the talent and they bet on the talent. That's turning out pretty well too. So a team could take Jeanty. I don't know for sure if he's even going to be available when the Cowboys pick at number 12. Very likely he will, but when I'm looking at the draft order, Cleveland picks at number 2. Nick Chubb's a free agent. They need a running back. They probably won't take him at number 2 overall. I don't think they will, but I'm just saying that's a team he could fit. The most realistic place I see that he could go before Dallas, maybe Las Vegas at number 6. That's very high, but this is Ashton Jeanty we're talking about, so that wouldn't be completely stunning. Also, the Saints pick at number 9. Alvin Kamara is getting older. The Bears pick at number 10. I don't know if Ben Johnson, their new head coach, is totally enamored with DeAndre Swift, because remember, when DeAndre Swift was in Detroit, Ben Johnson was offensive coordinator, DeAndre got cut. So you might see Ben Johnson say it's worth drafting Ashton Jeanty, cut DeAndre Swift, and let me implement the same style I had with Montgomery and Gibbs in Detroit with Roschon Johnson and Ashton Jeanty. Just saying, that wouldn't be a bad move. So Dallas might get to draft Jeanty at number 12, but he may not even be on the board that long. I just don't know. Time will tell, even if he has some struggles as a rookie, and he'll probably have some because all rookies are going to have some struggles. I do think this young man likely will have a very good career. I say this from time to time, and I'll say it about anybody. Barring a severe career-ending or career-altering injury, because we just don't know when that could happen, I think Ashton Jeanty likely will be a very good NFL running back. I hope he gets drafted somewhere where he's behind a pretty good offensive line. He's in a pretty good position, because I don't care how good any running back is. If you don't have the offensive line in place, just don't draft Ashton Jeanty. Just don't. He's not going to come in and turn your team around if he doesn't have blockers. Look at Saquon Barkley with the Giants. He was a good running back. He had good games from time to time. We never saw his potential because the rest of the team around him simply was not very good. He goes to Philadelphia last year, goes for over 2,000 yards. What's the biggest change? He had better weapons around him. He had a really good quarterback. He had a tandem of great receivers, and he had one of the best offensive lines, if not the best offensive line in the league to run behind. So my thing to say, if you draft Ashton Jeanty, put him in a good situation. You don't put him behind an offensive line that needs work. Upgrade your offensive line first. It'd be my suggestion to any of these teams. But I would not be shocked to see him have similar success to a Bijan Robinson, a Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe a Saquon Barkley, LaDainian Tomlinson. Again, not a prediction because we just don't know. But I do think the guy's got that type of potential. Second running back I'll talk about from the University of North Carolina, 6 foot, 220 pounds, Omarion Hampton. He's a big old boy. Not as fast as some of your guys, but you don't need to be when you're 6 foot, 220. But he does have plenty of speed. You want to talk about productivity, and even if you don't, we're going to. As a sophomore, when he had Drake May as his quarterback, 253 carries, 1,504 yards, 5.9 yards per carry, 15 rushing touchdowns. Much like Ashton Jeanty. If he was eligible for the draft, he could have been drafted pretty high that year. That's how good he was. 2024, without Drake May, numbers were pretty darn similar. 281 carries, 1,660 yards, 5.9 yards a carry, 15 rushing touchdowns. He also had 373 yards on 38 receptions and 2 touchdowns as a junior. This guy, I think, could be a 3-down back from day one, just like Ashton Jeanty. There are enough teams that need upgrades to the running back position. I wouldn't be shocked to see Jeanty and Hampton both go in the first round. Also, if Hampton drops the second round, I don't care. Wherever he goes, again, if he's in a situation where you got a good offensive line, wherever Hampton goes, I think he'll be pretty darn good when we're looking at the draft order, I talked a little bit with the teams that could draft Jeanty. All right, let's say Cowboys have number 12. When I'm looking at some of these other teams that need a running back upgrade, the Bengals pick at number 17. Nothing against Chase Brown, but if you add an Omarion Hampton or an Ashton Jeanty to that fold with Jamar R. pursued diligently and Joe Burrow, their offense just got a lot more dangerous. Pittsburgh picks at number 21. Najee Harris is a free agent. Not sure what they're doing with Jaylen Warren. I think he's a restricted free agent. But if you add Omarion Hampton, Omarion's a really good fit for Pittsburgh because he's that big, powerful, aggressive runner. He kind of fits the culture of that team. I think that would be a great fit. The Chargers pick at number 22. Do they re-sign J.K. Dobbins? Maybe. By the time y'all see this episode, some of those questions may be answered. I'm shooting this about 2 weeks before the free agency period begins on March 12th. By the time y'all see this, you'll probably already know where J.K. Dobbins and Najee Harris and some of these other guys are playing. But if the Chargers don't bring back Dobbins, Jeanty, if he's still on the board, would be a great fit there. Hampton would be a great fit. Also, the Vikings pick at number 24. If they don't bring Aaron Jones back, Omarion could be a great fit there. So my point is there's enough teams in the first round. There's enough teams that could use an upgraded running back position. I wouldn't be entirely shocked if Omarion Hampton does slip in somewhere in the middle or late first round. Either way, I think he's a darn good running back. And contingent upon situation and contingent upon usage, you could see him rival Jeanty's success in the NFL, at least for a period of time. We'll have to wait and see. And then the number 3 running back that I'm going to talk about, and I'll mention a couple other guys because I think there's a few of them that are pretty close, but the one I'm going to focus most on today is 5 foot 10 inch, 208 pounds out of Ohio State University, TreVeyon Henderson. I could easily have gone with Caleb Johnson of Iowa or TreVeyon Henderson's teammate, Quinshon Judkins. All those guys are pretty good. I'm going to talk about TreVeyon, and I'll tell you why. As a true freshman at Ohio State, he did have 1,248 yards, 6.8 yards per carry, and 15 touchdowns. Also caught 27 passes for 312 yards and 4 touchdowns. Right away, as a true freshman, the guy looked like a superstar. Then he had some injuries. Sophomore year, only had 571 yards and 6 touchdowns. As a junior, 926 yards, 11 touchdowns. Then Quinshon transferred over from Ole Miss. A lot of people were like, oh, that's going to hurt TreVeyon. It's going to hurt his draft status. He's not going to be as involved. This guy was a superstar. Well, what did they do as seniors? They both had over 1,000 yards rushing. TreVeyon Henderson last year playing with Judkins, 144 carries, 1,016 yards, 7.1 yards per carry, 10 rushing touchdowns. Did catch 27 passes for 284 yards and an additional touchdown. I think splitting time with Quinshon actually should help TreVeyon going into the NFL because we see a lot of teams rotating the running backs, using them in tandem. Detroit's the best example of using that for success. TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins both proved they can play with another good running back, play in a system, and still be really efficient and really productive. I think TreVeyon's a more complete overall back. Quinshon's a little bit more of a short yardage runner. He's a little bit bigger, but TreVeyon's got good speed, good vision, good burst. Seems to be a pretty good receiver out of the backfield as well. And again, 1,000 yards while splitting time with another 1,000-yard rusher. I think TreVeyon, I don't know that he'll get drafted in the first round. I don't think he will. I think he's more of a second, maybe even third round. I don't mean that as an insult, just contingent upon what teams need. You may see TreVeyon and Quinshon and Caleb Johnson all slip into the third round, and that's okay. Because quite honestly, I know people make a big thing out of draft capital, and I'm not saying I disagree, but once a guy is in the league, do you really care where he was drafted, or do you care that he can produce for your team? So we're at third round or wherever that TreVeyon gets drafted, I think likely he will be a very good running back in the NFL. I'm going to touch on something I didn't touch on with the quarterbacks, and that's because Washington definitely is set at the quarterback position. But since I am a Commanders fan, I would like to see them add a running back in this draft. That's not an insult to Brian Robinson Jr. I think he's a solid running back. I want to keep him. But Austin Eckler is on the second of a 2-year deal. Age, injuries, and usage have all caught up to him. I'm not saying to cut Austin Eckler. He's still a good receiving back. But I certainly wouldn't mind. In fact, it's more than I wouldn't mind. I would like to see them draft someone in this draft class because there's so many good running backs, and I just want more weapons around Jayden to make the team even better. So they pick at number 29 in the first round. Truthfully, and again, by the time y'all see this, some of these things may be answered. What I really hope they do with their first round pick is package it to do a trade for Myles Garrett. Because, oh my goodness, I would love to have him playing on the defense. If they're not able to pull that off, if Ashton Jeanty somehow, by some unforeseen event, is available when they pick at number 29, my goodness, yes, please draft him. Don't think that's too likely. So if they end up with TreVeyon Henderson or Omarion Hampton in the second round, Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Cam Skatadabo, Devin Neal out of Kansas, there's a lot of options. I'd like to see the Commanders add somebody. So, yes, I'd love to have all three of these guys. TreVeyon Henderson's probably the most likely because it may be the second round before they take a running back. But I think all these guys have a lot of potential. Are we going to see some guys that have legendary careers? Maybe. I don't know because anything can happen. Injuries can happen. Guys get in a bad situation. Too many unknown factors. But I think all three of these guys I just named, along with some of the other ones, most likely, especially if they're in the right situation, could have pretty darn good careers. I'm going to say this real quick before I land the plane. I just want these guys to get drafted by a team that will actually use them. So I'm looking back to last year's NFL draft. Jonathan Brooks, a little bit different situation because he was injured. They knew he wasn't going to start right away. Unfortunately, the young man got injured again. I wish him all the best. Looks like he may be out the whole 2025 season. I don't know at this point what his career will look like. I do hope 2026 and beyond we see him recover and have a similar impact to what we finally saw J.K. Dobbins have this past year. So I still have hope for Jonathan Brooks. But Trey Benson was drafted by a team that already had James Conner, and then they barely used Trey Benson. Blake Corum was drafted by a team that already had Kyron Williams. Blake Corum was barely utilized. Marshawn Lloyd was drafted by a team that just signed Josh Jacobs. Then Marshawn, unfortunately, got injured. Jalen Wright was drafted by a team that already had Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. Braylon Allen was drafted by a team that already had Breece Hall. I didn't understand a lot of those moves, so I just hope that a lot of the top running backs from this year's class will actually go to a team that will utilize them and get some productivity out of them because I do think they've all got a lot to offer. So there's my assessment on the running backs. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Do you think Omarion Hampton is actually better than Ashton Jeanty? Do you think the level of competition makes that big a difference? Do you think TreVeyon Henderson might be better than Omarion Hampton when you look at the way he split carries? Do you think Caleb Johnson's better than Omarion Hampton? Do you think Ashton Jeanty's going to be better than Christian McCaffrey? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know. I love to get discussions going and see what people think. But I hope you did like the episode. If you did, please show that by clicking the like button. If you've not already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It will help enable me to bring you more of this type of content, as well as many other types. So I hope y'all have a great week. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope I see you again real soon.